we are going to get started. Thank you everyone for joining us, joining myself and David, and we will jump straight into it and get started. I'll just share my slides. Are we looking good, David?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Good. So thanks again for joining us. Quick agenda of what we're going to cover in today's webinar, myself and David. We'll talk about who we are, bit of introductions. We'll talk about Giving Insight and why it's come about. David's going to specifically talk about some strategies to manage retention during these times. And then we'll jump into a short demo of Giving Insight and some of its key functionalities and benefits. And there'll be a little bit of time at the end for Q&A if anyone has any questions. So who are we? So my name is Michael Baker and I work at Altus Consulting where I'm Head of Innovation. So what that essentially means is Head of Innovation is looking around innovative ways to use Altus's experience and capabilities to bring unique solutions to help people on the market. And what is Altus all about? We're really data people. So we've been around for over 20 years now, privately owned, offices in Sydney, Canberra, Auckland, Melbourne and London. And we just do data analytics. So we don't build CRMs or anything else. We're very deep in the data space. We're vendor independent. So we work with all the big software players. And we focus exclusively in the analytics space. David?
Hello, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining. I've got a fundraising consultancy called Nourish NFP, which I've been running since 2008. And I do a lot of work with clients on a lot of different areas of fundraising, strategy, ops, and so on. But a lot of work I've done over the last 20 odd years has been with regular giving. And I'm a big fan of regular giving and recognize all the kind of associated benefits and issues with it as well. So the beauty of what we're going to talk about today is this is really focused on making your regular giving program a lot better in terms of the ability to report and analyze.
Excellent.
So just before we go into looking at some of this in a bit more detail, I think everybody who's on the call will understand the importance that regular giving has had in our sector over the last 20 or so years. I think for me personally, I would say that there hasn't been a single channel which has influenced fundraising and, more importantly, the benefits to those we help as regular giving has. It's provided such massive growth over those 20 odd years that its importance cannot be understated. And of course, the great thing about regular giving, as we all know, is that our donors whose gifts were recruited many years ago will continue giving into the future, and those donors are maybe the ones who have helped cure some of the great medical mysteries of our time, including ones we may be seeing today. I think, from personal experience and certainly experience of speaking to lots of other fundraisers, one of the challenges that we always face is the ability to easily and accurately monitor and report the performance of our regular giving program. And I think the reason for that, or one of the reasons for that, is whilst the CRMs most people or most organizations tend to use, they tend to report transactional data rather than you provide with the in-depth analysis that you really need. And Maithili is going to talk a little bit more about that now.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, so this is back to a little bit of the context of why we developed Giving Insight. And we saw when we looked at a lot of the NFPs working in this space, trying to do analytics, there were a lot of different challenges. And the first one being, people look to their CRM where the data is being held to do their analytics. But, as data people, we know that CRMs are not actually designed to do in-depth trend historical analysis. That the data model on the back end of a CRM is designed to capture transactional information as quickly as possible. It's designed to do in and out. So, it's always going to be hard to get the answers you need out of a CRM, which then moves us back into Excel, which we all know, Excel is wonderful, but it has a lot of different challenges and formulas you need to keep up to date. And then when someone leaves with all their Excel knowledge, you have a spreadsheet that nobody knows how to maintain and upkeep. And what we could see on the market were very expensive software alternatives. And all of this was very, very time consuming. So, you know, we can't spend time doing fundraising, essentially, which is what we want to be doing. Oh, David, you're on mute.
Sorry, there'll be a dog barking in the background, so I didn't really want to share that. Okay, so what is GivingInsight? Why is it important? So fundamentally, it's a regular giving analytics tool, and right now, at the moment, it's purely about regular giving analytics. Although, as we'll talk about a bit later, we're looking at what the next phase looks like as well. It really is about allowing you to analyze your program using a variety of criteria and segmentation, and really, as you'll see when we do the demo, is to be able to get down to quite a lot of detail and narrow down your criteria and segments quite carefully. It's going to give you a really good view of the program that you really need to see, and to help maximize your campaign ROI, and by which I mean it's going to allow you to make decisions about future investment in regular giving programs. It allows you to compare and contrast those programs you're doing now and see which one is the more valuable, and perhaps which ones you want to invest in for the future. The great thing about it too is it helps identify problems very quickly around, say, attritions or declines and so on, and we'll show you how that works. But I think one of the things about managing a regular giving program really well is to be able to see problems in those sorts of areas very quickly, so you can then make decisions about what to do about them. Most of our clients that we have using it at the moment are able to do an upload using API. So the information you see is absolutely bang up to date and reflects absolutely the information in your CRM. So what you give us is what you see back. We don't play around with it and in any way. So it's what you give us is what you see. It's also got a forecasting tool in it, which is pretty useful for doing your budgets. And if you want to do a business case to the board for a new regular giving channel, for example, you can build a forecast inside it using that. And I think very importantly for both the fundraisers and for perhaps the board, you can make long-term investments decisions based on information that's provided in the tool. The other great thing is it's a subscription service, so, and the cost is not particularly high. It's about similar to getting 12 new regular donors, so it's actually pretty cost effective. And the other idea we've got with this is once you've built up more users, is that we'll be able to benchmark performance against other users in the market, all of course anonymously, but it will let you see how you're performing against other users. So how can it help you? Well, I think personally, it allows you to understand when your program will be profitable and by how much, and that's really important, particularly when we're talking about fundraising investment. And speaking to quite a few organizations at the moment, I know there's a lot of pressure on fundraisers at the moment about having budgets tightened, perhaps cut. And so there's going to be more focus, I think, and more attention paid perhaps by boards on where investment is going and what's going to come back from that. And that, I think, we'll start to see over the next few months, particularly as people are doing their budgets and perhaps are being, questioned a bit more about how that's being directed. The second thing, my experience of being a fundraiser, doing regular giving for many years, is that it's often been hard in the past to get good, timely, accurate data out of your CRM in a way that's easy to understand without having to pull out a data file and perhaps putting in Excel and playing around with it and chopping it around and so on, which takes time. And time, of course, is precious to us all. So this is a way of seeing very quickly what's going on. And the other thing, which we'll show in a bit later in the demo, is that it also lets you see who your best donors are. And I think that's incredibly important. With regular giving, often we just lump everybody together in one big bucket. And yet in there are, some individuals who are, been giving for a very long time and been giving very generously. And this tool will let you see who they are. So before we're going to do a demo, I just want to have a little bit of a chat about where we are today in the market, in the sector, what's going on. You know, I know there's a lot of people a little bit concerned about what's been happening over the last few months with COVID-19. You know, there's lots of things that are happening. I was speaking to people who have very sadly been made redundant from organizations where, you know, they think that they don't want to spend any more money on fundraising, and therefore, you know, they're not going to continue running their programs as in the way they have in the past. We've already seen donors cancelling, and particularly at the beginning of this, before we saw JobKeeper come in. And you know, the big question is, well, how do we get through the next few months? How do we get into the next period where we can start to work out what the impact of this is on us, and how do we move forward? So there's a lot of planning going on, and I think one of the things to think about right now is you know, what do we do about donor retention at a time when we might be losing donors? And I think too, it's probably worth saying at the moment, is that we may have a second wave of cancellations coming in a few months, particularly when JobKeeper stops and businesses start to review, you know, can they continue the way they were before, or will they have to, you know, trim their staff and let people go? And I think that when we see that second wave come, if we do see it come, then that's going to have another impact on what we're doing with you know, how our donors are behaving. So the thing I really wanted to talk about is, you know, I think very importantly, focus really hard on long-term donor retention. Yes, we're going to lose people, I think, over the next few months, but if a donor is really very loyal to you now, then it's more likely for them to stay, or if they do cancel, then you want them to see if they can come back. And that's about managing cancelled donors. I would say that a lot of the donors who are cancelling at the moment are not people who want to, but feel they have to. And because of that, they have a particular loyalty to your organization. So I think there's a real logic in looking after those people who are cancelling now. You know, first of all, to make sure that they're appreciated. And I think we should do that with any donor who cancels. I think, you know, regardless of when that happens, we should be thanking them for their support. But at the moment, for those people who perhaps are cancelling because they feel they have to, not because they want to, is to give them, you know, continue to treat them with information and communication about what you're doing. Because at some point, these people who are very loyal to you will want to come back. And I think it makes a lot of sense to manage them and give them a good experience in the meantime. The third thing, and this is where Giving Insights is really going to make a difference, I think, to you, is to identify where you're making and losing money in your program. I think there's no doubt that there's a lot of, it's going to be very difficult to identify where in regular giving you might be losing money. One area I think is perhaps in the area of declined transactions. Yes, we know that we're losing people every month on declines, but what we don't necessarily understand is, you know, are we spending too much to try and bring back people who don't give again? So I think it's really important to use your, you know, use a tool like this to identify your attrition rates, because that's obviously impacting ROI. And to be able to look at declines and average gift and so on. And we'll come on to that in a minute. And that kind of ties into this whole idea of managing profitable and unprofitable donors, because, you know, outside of COVID as well, we've always got these, you know, donors who cost a lot to bring in. If you're doing face-to-face, for example, and you have high year-one attrition rates, then, you know, it takes quite a bit of time to get profitability back on those donor groups. So I think it's really important that you use it. You know, you've got the ability to look at your data and look at who are the sort of donors you really focus on, really look after, and those who perhaps are you know, have you know, are not the ones who are going to hang around for long, and who perhaps are going to cost more than they take to keep. So I think that's really the important thing at the moment for me right now, is to really focus on retention. and look after your donors in such a way that they really understand what you're doing through this process, and that you are still able to help your beneficiaries, because that's, of course, the really important point. So I think the next step for this now is to look at a demo.
Yes, and so before I jump on, I just wanted to, I forgot to mention to you guys, if you've got any questions during the way, just pop it into the question dialog box, the chat box, and we can answer them then and there if appropriate, or we'll definitely check at the very end. That's probably the easiest way to ask questions. I'm not sure if we have anyone with their hand up. Is it someone looking to ask a question? Just pop it in the chat box and we can always let that happen. I can figure out how to unmute you at the end as well. Okay, so yes, so we are going to jump into a demo now. Yeah, we'll just do a quick demo. As I said before, put any questions into the chat box. David, you can have a look at that as well, and we can jump in and answer them along the way as we go. So this is just, we're going to jump into demo. At the bottom of this PowerPoint slide is a list of our current customers. Okay, I will stop sharing. Okay, excellent. David, you give me a thumbs up. You can see the app. Excellent. Good, thank you. So we are in GivingInsight, the tool now, and this is the home page. So this is where you first log in and you can see a couple of key statistics and quick links to other areas of the tool. What I'm going to do is go through the analytics, specifically all the different views you can have of your actual programs and donors, and then we'll finish off with showing you how you can do an easy forecast. Now, what I want to say up front is that what you're seeing here is completely sample data. So not a lot of it will make entire sense because it's difficult to make up lots and lots of data. So just please bear that in mind, that the data may not all be entirely logical, but it still give you an idea of functionality. So this is the KPI page. So this is what we describe as the sort of executive dashboard. All your key metrics, easily viewable. You can sort of see, you can see total donors, lifetime revenue, retention, signups per month, gift per donor, average gift, average declines, your pre-debit cancels, your return on investment and average cost per acquisition, as well as your year 1 and year 2 attrition, as well as a, you know, this can be a sort of rolling 12-month attrition view. David, do you want to add anything to this page, particularly about the costs?
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make. So one of the things we tried to do in here, which is always a bit of a challenge, I think, when you're doing some of the data analytics, is to put in costs so we can see return on investment. Now, we also understand that it's pretty hard, particularly historically, to go and get this level of information and put it in. So what we're trying to do is make it fairly simple and allow you to put it in as a cost per acquisition into the data upload, so that we can provide a broad cost and ROI. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's going to be reasonably accurate, or should be, depending on what you give us. But it really does, you know, allow you to see just, you know, broadly how well you're performing.
Excellent. So the other key feature about the analytics to talk about is the filtering. So at the top here, you've got access to some quick common filters, but the filters are actually just driven by all the data you're able to provide us. So if you look here, you know, you can filter the data on appeal, campaign, your channel, gift status, supplier, you know, fun, and what's in here will be essentially what you're providing us. So it's straight from your CRM. You can also find some calculated filters such as gift range or age range, gender. You can filter on payment method, you know, frequency, and a whole bunch of sort of date type filters, either from a transaction perspective or a cohort perspective. So that's really the filtering options, and this is where you can really sort of dive into the data in quite a deeper way. And what I'll do is we'll make our way through the pages relatively quickly. I'm looking at the time. The installment view. So this is really your view of attrition. So this is where you can actually see all your information lined up by month. So, you know, what this does is basically, it doesn't matter when you actually acquire the donor, month 1 is month 1. So you can compare suppliers, channels, campaigns, and actually see apples to apples how their attritions perform. And here's an example of how you can use the filtering to sort of start splitting out your data. And you can imagine you could do this by age range or supplier, whatever it might be. And on this page, you have an attrition installment perspective or accumulated, so you can kind of see what your 12-month, 24-month, 36-month attrition is looking like. You've got the details underneath from an attrition and accumulated perspective, as well as you can actually see the numbers remaining in your cohorts that you've selected. So that's the attrition perspective. I'll jump straight to the calendar view. David, if there's anything to add, feel free to jump in. And what I might do is just look at the last 12 months so that it's a little bit easier to see. But if attrition, the installment view is looking at it from a cohort perspective, calendar view is really looking at over time. So this is your finger on the pulse. You're really seeing what's actually happening now. You know, what kind of revenue am I getting in? What is my number of active donors? How many donors am I signing up by month, by supplier or channel or campaign? And how many donors are actually cancelling? So this really tells you that view of what's actually happening, tracking over time, every month. As David mentioned, we have an API connection, so the data gets updated overnight. So you get, you know, data as of yesterday. And you can also drill into your cancelled donors. So you can kind of, you know, if you have the data, we can bring through cancel leads in and comment, and you can have a, you know, really deep dive as it's happening to see what's going on. I'll skip data quality for the sake of time, but that's some of the key metrics, such as, you know, do you have negative ages or missing data in your set? And I'll jump straight to Hall of Fame, where we as David mentioned before, this is where we really tell you who your most valuable donors are. And, you know, you could look across this for your entire campaign. This will give you all your donors ranked. You can go through your entire database. And if you click view here, you'll get some data about the donor, plus, you know, what their journey's been like in terms of, you know, how they've been giving to you, you know, what their gift started off is, what there's likes, what kind of declines have actually happened. David, do you want to add anything to this?
Well, only to say that a number of the people who are using it already have really been able to pick out some high value donors from this page alone. And that's been really interesting to see. People, for example, who've been around for a long time, who've never necessarily been recognized or, you know, had the phone picked up to them. Now you can see who actually are your best donors in your regular giving program. And it allows you to make some decisions about, you know, do you continue to look after them in the same way? Do you do something different with them? They become a middle donor, a major donor, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been a really useful page for a number of our clients.
Excellent. Yeah. Declines has been another very popular page, and this is where we basically provide a different view and segment your decline information. So if you can see here, we can look at it from a lost revenue perspective, also from a volume perspective, transactions by day of week to identify sort of your best days and how that is trending, your actual decline volumes in terms of successful versus decline transactions, but then also percentage. So you can again compare the decline percentage across different campaigns or suppliers. And on the right here, we have your top decline reasons. We also provide you a ranking of your donors in terms of the number of their decline transactions, plus a view of successive declines as well to give you that insight as well. David, anything you want to add to declines?
Well, just on that last point around that table is that it does allow you to at least look at those donors who perhaps are continually going into your declines calling program, and perhaps they're just not, you know, giving as a result. So you can make some decisions if you wanted about pulling them out of that and not doing anything with them. You might, you know, put them into a, you know, hold or a cancellation program too. So again, just gives you a bit more information really quickly at your fingertips to make some decisions around how you might manage your declines.
Best donor segment is letting you analyze your average gift. So you can basically, you know, I like to think of this page as it doesn't do your segmenting for you, but it validates your segments. So, you know, you might have a certain view in terms of age or types of donors that are more profitable for you. You know, you could basically graph all the different age groups and who's actually giving you the best average gift, whether your credit card versus debit card, what it actually is the best average gift. You could pick an upgrade campaign and see actually what was the shift in average gift from that campaign. And then the other perspective is upgrades and downgrades. So tracking, you know, a particular supplier, where are they trending, you know, in terms of that dollar value or the campaign, how it's actually going over time. So this is that view really of average gift. And sorry, I did mention also LTV. So you can actually start also analyzing that by the same attributes to see who your most profitable donors really are based on all the different factors and attributes that you can actually filter on here. So I won't spend any more time on this. I'll quickly jump into the forecast because we do want to show you this. And David, I might let you talk to this one as I go through it.
Sure. So the idea of the forecast page is to allow you to perhaps do your regular giving budget, or you might do a business case for a new fundraising channel, and it allows you to forecast the outcomes of that. So if you want to run a new forecast, you would look onto the left-hand side of this page where it says channel. You can choose your channel. We've got face-to-face in there right now. You can choose your supplier if you want to do that. You can also, if you want, include a PFRA cost if you choose to do that. Then you can go and put in your expected average gift. We've got $30 there. Your pre-debit failed, that's people who will not even meet the transaction point. A cost per acquisition, and then the next two boxes are the donor care costs and transaction costs. So those are absolutely optional. Some organizations like to add those costs into their modeling, so they've accounted for all those costs. You may not wish to do that, so those two are optional. Then you put in your declined transaction percentage per month, and then you can choose which month you want to start your forecast, which we've chosen here, July 2020. Give it a version name because you can have multiple versions. And then down on the next table is where you put in your numbers of donors you're going to acquire. Now, as you can see, you can put this in for multiple years, but you only need to put data in for the first year, even if it's a zero number. But what we have here, as you can see, 123 and then 100 in the later months. The box below that is your attrition rates per month. Again, this is just an example. You can use your own data, or as you wish. So once you've filled all this out, you hit the yellow button that says Submit Forecast, and then you get to see the results. And there's two things really on this page. One is the graph, and one is the blue box. That blue box is telling you how much your revenue will be, how much expenses are, and when you break even. And then there's a graph that shows you the accumulated and the month-on-month results. And then below that is the actual donors remaining from those cohorts. Now, the great thing about this forecasting tool is this page obviously gives you a bit of an instant look. But what you can then do is you can then export this to a CSV file, and that allows you to drop the data directly into your own budget template. So the forecasting tool allows you to very quickly see what you've done, but then you can take it away and put it into another format as you want. So yeah, that's your forecasting tool in a nutshell.
Excellent. So that's really all the key areas of functionality of GivingInsight, and we've gone through it, fairly quickly. So I'm very happy. Obviously, if you want any more details, you can get in touch with us. I'll basically see if there's any questions now, and if there is, we can put them in the Q&A box and we can answer them. Otherwise, we will share this presentation with you afterwards, so you'll be able to get a copy of it.
This is Andrew has had his hand up for a while, so I'm not sure if Andrew wanted to ask a question or
yeah.
If so, let us know.
Oh, I think Andrew's hand's gone down.
I've got a question from Nikki Dent, and the question is, how many years does the forecast go out for? Is it 5 or is it 10? I'm just trying to remember.
It goes out 10 years.
So you go out 10 years.
Yeah.
The Q&A page, we got a number of different questions. How do I implement it? It's a very straightforward automatic connection to the CRM APIs. Most of the organizations we're working with are using RE, NXT, or Salesforce, but we've also got currently one client on Thank You. There's no limit to the number of users, so you can, obviously not a cast of thousands, but within reason, there's no limit. How much does it cost? Well, we charge an annual subscription of $4,500, which is pretty reasonable for this. If you think about it, in the terms of your regular giving program, it's probably 10 or 12, depending how much you're paying for a regular giving donor. And the final point we always get asked is it just regular givers? Yes, it is. However, our next stage is to develop a cash donor component of that as well. Once we've done that, we'll go beyond that. And the reason we've started with regular givers, this is the one which is always the kind of the program that takes the most time. It's the one with the most data, and it's the one that probably needs the most, or it's the one that people will find very useful to have an easy look at the program. So has there anybody got any other questions they'd like to ask?
If not, we will close this, and you will get our details afterwards via email. We'll send that back out to you guys so you can get in touch with us if you have any further questions. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed. And as Maithili says, if you've got any questions, just let us know.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.